We call this meeting of the James City County Board of Supervisors to order for the purpose of business meeting. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Wainwright?
Here.
Ms. Noel?
Present.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Here.
Ms. Larson?
Here.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Here.
All present.
Okay, thank you. We have a pretty varied agenda today, and our first items are going to be presentations. We'll start with Visit Williamsburg and Mr. Harris. Nice to see you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I'm going to try to go quickly because I know there's a bunch of topics on the agenda. Okay. Well, I'm going to start today's update with a sort of an eyesore chart, but I do want to share some numbers up front on the performance of tourism in the historic triangle. And this chart shows the transient tax collections over the past few years. This recaps tourism up through the end of last year, and you can see that when we were in the pandemic, transient tax collections dipped significantly, and then there was that strong rebound that was seen across the country and then started to sort of level out. But the good news for our neck of the woods is that tourism continues to grow. Over the past 2 years, from the calendar standpoint, we saw the transient tax collections increase over 11%. And year to date this year, we're hovering right around 4%. We are anticipating we'll end up the year when it's all said and done between 5 and 6%, which is remarkable considering that nationwide, depending on where you're visiting, tourism's been up and down. And it has been up and down here as well. Not every week is tourism up. We've had ups and downs, but to be showing growth with the way the economy has been, et cetera, we feel really good about where we're headed this summer, especially. I do want to talk also quickly about the hotel-motel performance. The transient tax, of course, which I just showed, covers all of the lodging properties from hotels to Airbnbs, B&Bs, timeshares, campgrounds, et cetera. But we do like to look at how are the hotels and motels performing, and we can see here in summary the historic triangle through April compared to last year. We're seeing the occupancy levels have increased 7.7%. The revenue per available room at our hotel is also up. And the most important column for us at Visit Williamsburg that we like to look at are the number of rooms sold. Are more rooms being sold this year versus last year? And the answer is yes. We're up 6%. And if you want to break it down, you can see up above James City County, York County, and the city of Williamsburg. The average daily rate at our hotels has gone down slightly, as well as the number of rooms we have to rent. But all in all, when you compare the historic triangle to what is happening at the state level, as well as across the United States, you can see that not only Williamsburg, but our state of Virginia is very resilient. People love to visit our state as well as the historic triangle. So I want to segue into, well, what's next in terms of what's coming up? And I'm happy to share that one of the data sources we look at called Hotel Planner is seeing advanced bookings heading into Independence Day on the rise. No surprise there, being that we're such an important destination for the 250th birthday. And when it comes to our advertising campaign, last summer we started our new platform, which is Where America's Journey Begins. We did that intentionally to remind Americans that you want to be here when we celebrate the 250th birthday, because this is where it all started. And that campaign has flowed through all of our advertising efforts, from TV to billboards, digital ads, social media, of course, and our visitor guide and special 250th guide that we produced. We have also had events to get people excited about the 250th. The first event was last fall at the Jamestown Settlement, where we partnered with our friends at the Chamber of Commerce to rally the business community around the 250th. And speaking of events, we've had more events over the past 6 to 8 months than we normally would have because of the 250th. It all started last fall with the event We the People, which was, of course, the new Ken Burns documentary film that was shown over at the Yorktown battlefield. We then had Samantha Brown's Popular Places to Love TV show premiere at the Kimball Theater over in Williamsburg, where they showed the entire segment of the historic triangle. We then, in February, welcomed the Virginia Black Film Festival for the first time. And then, who can't forget Revolutionary Rhythms with Kool and the Gang at Jamestown Beach Event Park, which was a major success. One side project, in addition to Where America's Journey Begins, our team partnered with various groups to pull off America's Birthday Quilt. This was a concept that, to me, started out very slow but built over time, and I'm happy to say that we finished with a birthday quilt that consists of over 2,000 quilt squares that were submitted from all 50 states, and we well surpassed our goal of creating a 250 feet long quilt. The quilt is actually over 500 feet long, and I'm going to play just a quick 30-second video to give you a sense of the project. Okay, so the quilt is made up of squares, not only from community groups that submitted squares to us, but also from all 50 states. We actually had people fly in from different places around the country to find their square in our quilt when we rolled it out back in April. And today, if you want to see the quilt, you can see it in the Colonial Williamsburg Visitor Center. Parts of it are also on display at the Muscarelli Museum of Art, as we ran out of space to display the entire quilt at the visitor center. One other quick update I want to share is an event we had for National Travel and Tourism Week a few weeks back in Colonial Williamsburg. I want to thank Ruth Larson for being part of that event, and she does such a great job of leading Visit Williamsburg as our board chair. But we also brought in Don Welsh as a keynote speaker. He's the president of Destinations International, and Dan Roberts, who works with our friends at the Virginia Tourism Corporation, to speak. And then, of course, we had two separate panels. I know there's some familiar faces in the room today who were helping us out with these panels, but we had a 250th events panel as well as a Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events panel. Thank you, Scott, Ben, and Dana for helping out with that panel discussion. Some of you may be aware we also had the Today Show here in town back on May 15th. And what I liked about the Today Show specifically was that they really did a nice job of showcasing all 3 points in the triangle, from Williamsburg, of course, to scenes at the Jamestown Glass House, and just having our destination on the national stage was awesome. I'll just click through some of these pictures. Of course, Busch Gardens was part of it. There were scenes over in Yorktown as well. Black history was a key theme. Some of our local businesses were showcased during the show. And then there's the quilt. You heard about the quilt project already, but they wanted to be part of it. So the talent from the Today Show created a quilt square and signed it. And we'll figure out a place to weave that into our quilt. Of course, pancakes were shown, which was also fun to see coming after the first annual Pancake Festival our team put together last September. We will be back in year 2 this September on National Pancake Day, again with a pancake festival. And then, of course, social media was great around the Today Show. And so what's next as I wrap up? Of course, Busch Gardens always has some fun things planned. Currently, they have the Food and Wine Festival. Later this week, they are opening Verbolten Forbidden Turn, which is a refresh of a popular coaster that they have there already. And then, of course, they have the concert series, which kicks into high gear very soon. Over in Yorktown, of course, Sail Yorktown Festival. We will be promoting that event in a big way coming up on June 12th. And I won't steal the thunder of my colleagues who are going to talk more about the Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events Center in a minute. Don't forget about Williamsburg Live. Great lineup of live music coming up next month. And then, of course, 4th of July will be huge this year here in the Historic Triangle. And I'm going to close by just encouraging everyone to download our 250th Passport, which is a mobile trail you can download on your phone if you go to visitwilliamsburg.com and get discounts and information about all the events happening here over the summer months. And with that, I guess I'll open it to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thanks for that very informative presentation. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Ed, so much. Thank you and your staff for all that you do. This has been a particularly busy year. We're not slowing down at all. We're keeping the gas pedal going because we hope that a lot of visitors will be here this summer and then keep coming back. And so, and especially all the work that's going into building the sports tourism. We just got finished with a huge soccer tournament this weekend that I believe brought in 2,000 room nights to this area. And so that really helps us with our revenue and helps get more visitors to the area. So I really appreciate it. I did just have one. I know you made a remark about our average daily rate seeing a little bit of a decline, but for a while there, we had a really, really high ADR, I believe. So when we say it dropped a little bit, it probably is still pretty high for this.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. And oftentimes when we're looking at the average daily rate, it's kind of self-correcting itself based on the market.
Right.
And across the state, as you saw on the slide, we're not far off where the state numbers are in the U.S. So the economy obviously is always changing, but to just be down slightly at 1%, seeing the money the revenue per available room number is still very healthy. So we feel like the hotels are definitely adjusting to economic factors with their rates. But yes, we still have a very strong average daily rate, even though it's slightly down at the moment.
Then Supervisor Wainwright brought up today that she had gotten some information off of a vacation that she's going on where they, on the last day, it's things to do, and it did mention this area, so that's good. I did wonder, what is our presence like in rest stops? I know that used to be really big. I don't know do we have a presence there? I know we've pulled back a little bit, but maybe talk about that for.
Yeah, so we do distribute the visitor's guide as well as our 250th guide that we recently produced. I think in the future, we'd like to have more of a presence, especially as we transition out of the 250th. For the 250th year of 2026, it was important for us to really double down on reminding people of all the amazing history we have here. And of course, we will continue to talk about history, but we definitely want to get back to that broader story of all the other things in addition to the history as we go forward. And so I bring that up because I think it's a great opportunity for us to refresh our presence in the visitor centers post 4th of July.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? Thanks very much. And now, Mr. Stevens, you're going to give us a report, I understand.
Mr. Chairman, we'll run to the podium. We've got a group of us traveling around doing this, so I thought I'd do it down there and at least address you as we're going to address the other localities
Great.
and sharing this information. I remember the view down here. It is different, so good to be back for a moment. Before I forget, I do want to thank Ed Harris and Visit Williamsburg. Two things today. One, he stayed within my 10 to 15-minute time frame, so thank you, Ed. A lot of information in a reasonable amount of time. And then secondly, they have been a very strong supporter for the Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events Center, and Ed's been a real champion of that. His staff has certainly made a lot of our success easier, and I think going forward we'll continue to have a really great relationship with Visit Williamsburg in all three localities, in the sports center, in our fields, and beyond. So thank you again for that support. For those in the audience here, I do want to say I am James City County Administrator. That'll be evident here. It may not be in other places, but I'm also chair of the Historic Triangle Recreation Facilities Authority, which is the governmental entity which has built the Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events Center, and I'll talk more to that in a minute. I do have here with me Dana Yaus, the Executive Director for the HTRFA. So she's our one and only employee, and so she came on about 10 months ago. And then Ben Hardawin with Kemper Sports, who's our General Manager and Operator of the Sports and Events Center, and you will hear from them in a few minutes as well. We believed it was important with the opening, and you're going to hear the opening of the Sports and Events Center that will occur June 24th at 3:30 p.m., and all are invited to attend. You're going to hear us, probably each one of us, talk about the opening. It's a really big event. We're really excited, and we hope to have thousands that will turn out to see this new amenity that we have built. I'm going to spend a little time talking about the history and how we got to the point of going to construction, because I was here during that time frame. Dana Yaus will talk about sort of from the groundbreaking through construction to where we have the finished facility. And then Ben will speak toward the operating and events that are up and coming and the staff that he's putting on board to serve and introduce this community. We'll share our contact information at the end of this presentation. So if there are those that have questions of us following this, we are happy to try to answer those questions and tell you more about the Sports and Events Center. So again, a bit of the timeline, and this is something we showed about a couple years ago as we were going through the process, but the timeline here lists significant steps that led up to the groundbreaking for the Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events Center. An indoor regional sports facility has been talked about in our communities since at least 2014. The most recent discussion began in 2019 when the Williamsburg Hotel Motel Association applied to the City of Williamsburg for a grant for designing and construction of an indoor regional sports facility. That led to the formation of a working group with staff from each locality, meeting to review further studies, and resulted in a recommendation to our elected officials to form this Historic Triangle Recreation Facilities Authority, or HTRFA, in the fall of 2021. Following the formation of the HTRFA, we received an unsolicited proposal for this project. We evaluated several proposals for the project and selected a design-build team. We also secured a ground lease for the proposed site, evaluated possible facility operators, and came back to our elected officials in the fall of 2023 with better cost estimates for construction, leasing in place for the property, what we believed we would need for staffing and operating, and a number of financial reports that sort of supported what our cost might be and what the incremental revenues would be from sales, meals, and lodging tax related to the operating of the center. We recommended the localities proceed with approving the funding agreements, and each locality in December of 2023, the localities approved these funding agreements, which allowed the project to proceed. I do want to step back and just talk about the Historic Triangle Recreation Facilities Authority and what is it? It is, in my opinion, an extension of the three localities. You formed this entity. It was created by the City of Williamsburg, York County, and James City County to evaluate and, if feasible, oversee the construction. And so we moved through that in December of 23 where we had evaluated it. We determined it was feasible. The boards made that decision to move forward with construction. We do have two representatives from each locality, and the way our bylaws are set up, no two localities can overthrow the other one, so to speak. So if there's an important decision to be made, somebody from each locality has to vote for it. It can be a 4-2 vote, but somebody from each locality would have to vote to support that. And that was important to all of us in making sure that York County and James City didn't gang up on Williamsburg, or the city and York County would gang up on James City. So I think that has worked. We've not had that at all, but that is written into our bylaws. Our current board members there, and I currently, as I said earlier, serve as the chair. I want to give you a quick overview of the original project scope, and I will tell you we have built almost exactly what we talked about 2 years ago for almost what we said it would cost 2 years ago. So I'm really excited that we're here 2 years later showing you what we did based on what we told you we were going to do. Again, the original scope of this project was for 160,000 square foot facility, 12 basketball courts, 24 volleyball, 36 pickleball, office, 115,000 square feet or almost 2.5 acres of hardwood maple flooring, meeting rooms, food and beverage areas, storage areas, office and administration, and a first aid area. So that was our original scope. And as we were talking about it over 2 years ago now, we looked at some additional project area that might make sense for our facility and trying to make it a unique experience. It's not just 12 gyms, but we added a banquet room, we added a rollout turf, we have really exterior architectural. The only thing that we've done differently from the original scope is we talked about a climbing rock wall and a ninja gym. As we got into the design and talking about who that might cater to, we changed that to an indoor feature gym, and it's about 270 different components to that gym. It's meant to be toddlers up to about 18-year-olds, and certainly there are 35 and 40-year-olds that would like to crawl on some of it. We'll see what we allow as we open the facility, but it is something that will cater to a lot of children and a lot of age ranges where maybe the rock climbing and ninja might have been a more specific group. So we tried to broaden it so our visitors here would really enjoy it, and our parents here or grandparents here would have something that those with them could enjoy as well. So I talked about cost. We talked about an $80 million capital cost to build the facility, and that is what we had under contract. So we have stuck to that $80 million cost to build it. The city of Williamsburg was the primary backer, the backer of the debt, the primary funder of it, at $2.5 million annually for the debt service. The HTRFA receives maintenance of effort funds, which are money the localities are required to pay to it by state law. So James City County does have some part of that $1.5 million number, but that is paying the debt service on the building. The counties, York County and James City, were asked to support the operating, the lease, the cost to hire Kemper. If there's a deficit, a capital reserve fund, and our cost is up to $800,000. And we agreed in the first years we would pay the $800,000 per year to try to get our cash reserves in place, support the opening of the facility. But over time, our commitment is $300,000 to $800,000 per year, depending on how the facility is operating. So that is the county's risks, where the city taking a bigger portion of that. And again, James City and York County do have an agreement where we built it needing gym space. York County did not feel a need for gym space. So we do have a separate agreement with York County that after we operate this facility, we may pay $50,000 more a year if our usage of our residents is much higher based on usage of their residents. And that will be for programs that we're doing. So we're a year away from knowing if that has any influence or not. At this point, I would turn it over to Dana Youst and talk about really from our construction time frame to where we get to the operating.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm gonna try to stand back. I'm kind of loud, so I don't blow your ears out. Okay. Okay, we need to go back. Will you, Renee, please? Thank you. Okay, let's start again. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Today, we are proud to share the journey of bringing the Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events Center from concept to reality. What began as a regional vision several years ago has now become one of the most transformational tourism and recreational projects in the historic Triangle. The facility officially opens on June 24th, 2026, and represents years of planning, collaboration, and commitment from all three localities. In August of 2024, we celebrated the groundbreaking ceremony, officially moving this project into execution. This moment represented much more than construction. It demonstrated what can happen when regional partners align around a common goal. From elected officials, tourism leaders, and community stakeholders, to our construction and operational teams, everyone played an important role in moving this project forward. We have watched this facility rapidly take shape. from the early site work to structural steel and now completed interior spaces, the transformation has been remarkable. The indoor turf system, hardwood courts, and large-scale event areas are now operational and are ready to begin serving both residents and visitors throughout our region and beyond. One of the goals of this project was to build something that was more than simply a sports complex. The Greater Williamsburg Sports and Events Center was intentionally designed to create a full visitor and community experience. The hub space, the cafe, the parking lot area, gathering areas, and hospitality-focused design all supports tournaments, conferences, community engagement, while also creating a welcoming atmosphere for families and guests. These images showcase several of the signature areas within the facility. The front entrance and the mezzanine were designed to create an open and modern experience for visitors. The gymnasium provides flexible tournament and event space capable of hosting large regional and national events. In addition, the Adventure Gym creates a unique recreational opportunity that separates this facility from many traditional sports venues and helps expand programming opportunities for both residents and tourism. This project would not have been possible without the strong collaboration, the partnership between James City County, City of Williamsburg, and York County, Williamsburg Hotel Motel Association, Visit Williamsburg, and Kemper Sports, to name a few, and the numerous contractors, consultants that help make this vision possible. Okay, we can go to the last one. We are excited to officially welcome the community to the grand opening on June 24th, 2026. Doors will open at 3:30 p.m. with a formal program beginning at 4. Guests will have the opportunity to tour the facility, experience different activity zones, and celebrate this major milestone with historic Triangle community. We look forward to serving the facility. We will look forward to serving residents and visitors for many years to come. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Ben Hardwin. I'm the general manager of this amazing facility. Next week, I get to celebrate my official 1 year here in this amazing area, and what an incredible time to be part of the historic Triangle. Before we get into the slides, a little over a year ago, I interviewed for this position, and I came to the area. I know this area loosely because my wife's from sort of the North Carolina area, but I came here alone, spent a weekend. Didn't know a ton about the project, didn't know a ton about Kemper Sports, and I spent 48 hours going around the community and talking to people at the visitor center, at the hotel that I was staying at, and restaurants. And I said, what are they building over there? I see the beams going up and whatever. And I got some incredible answers that ultimately solidified me being here today. And they revolved around pride, community support, the best thing to come to the historic Triangle in a long time, something that's really going to elevate this area and continue to put it on the national stage. And so I was really pulled in instantly to want to be a part of this. And our mission statement, I think, reflects that. And everything that has come from that day for me has been built around this type of mission and what we want to bring to the area. So our mission is to deliver an elevated sports and events experience that bring people together, support health and wellness, strengthen our community, which is locally rooted, nationally relevant, and hospitality driven in every detail. If you look at these types of facilities throughout the country, and I was a sports dad and spent a lot of time in these, you're very lucky if the bathrooms have toilet paper and the popcorn is not stale and it's a good experience. That's not what we are looking to achieve here. And I've been very proud in working with our partners and everyone we've associated with that that's not their vision either. We want to bring something that is relevant on the national stage and continues to push Williamsburg and the historic Triangle forward on the sports and events venue side. So this is a little bit dated in a good way because we've added more to this, but this is just kind of a brief snapshot of the events in totality that we're bringing to the area. So we have well over 100 events secured. These are in the definite category. We have quite a bit more that we are in negotiations with, which is sort of the tentative category, and then prospecting ones that we're working either in conjunction with Visit Williamsburg and our other partners, or we're working independently to seek those out. We have now booked events into 2030, and in the next slide, thank you, and actually the one after this as well, you'll get to see just kind of a brief summary of the types of events that we're bringing to the market. And one of the things that my team and myself have really been working on is expanding the narrative that we're more than just a basketball facility. And that's one of the things that I inherited when I moved here. Oh, you're just going to do basketball, volleyball, right? Well, we do a lot more, and we will have the capability to do a lot more. And so on the kind of left column is just a summary of some of the events that we've already booked from futsal, cheerleading, wrestling, volleyball, basketball, ultimate frisbee, and so forth. So it's not just the traditional basketball, volleyball, but quite a few different events as well, sporting events. On the right column, this is a sampling of the different types of conference events that we have booked. We actually have a wedding planned, corporate retreats, car shows, banquets, gaming conferences, food and wine shows, graduations, employee appreciation events, science fairs, nonprofit meetings, and much, much more. I could fill 5 more slides with the types of things that we're getting requests to consider. So in addition to that, and this is another aspect that makes this facility really unique, a lot of sports venues in particular stay pretty dormant throughout the week, and then when you approach the event, they come alive with their event staff and their promotions and all the energy. What I love about what we're doing here is that we're going to stay consistently open and operational throughout the week for our community and visitors that are coming for other opportunities such as Colonial Williamsburg, Busch Gardens, et cetera. So some of the things we are working to solidify are things like our World Cup watch party, a Monday night football event, fantasy football, wine and canvas, a walking club, fitness classes, holiday camps, summer camps, birthday parties, et cetera. Again, it's an extremely long list of things that we're working on to bring to the community as far as events and activities. And then on the right side, we're going to have a pay-for-play option initially for our community, our residents to come in and do drop-in play, whether it's pickleball, basketball, soccer, et cetera. We'll configure the facility to support those different needs. And in addition, promote clubs and leagues, as well as our amazing Adventure Gym, which Mr. Stevens alluded to. Originally was a rock climbing wall. Now it's incredibly interactive, and it's going to be a highlight and a high point to this area for sure. Oh boy. So one of the things that I wanted to do is just kind of share a little bit about the team that is going to deliver on this enhanced experience. So just very briefly, I've been doing this for a while, and I've started a number of these types of projects, and this is always the crunch time. This is always the time when we're at full sprint. So I'm incredibly proud of the people that are going to be on the subsequent slides that are really burning the midnight oil with me to make sure we're on task and on time. So very quickly, Heidi Hume is our sales and marketing manager. Heidi is going to continue to promote our brand and our sales platforms and our marketing platforms. She's also responsible for our non-sports events at this moment. So if you have a wedding or a banquet or a meeting, Heidi is the person to go to. Her counterpart is Antonio Gonzalez. He's our sports and operations manager. So anything sports related, any clubs, leagues, anything that we're starting will fall under his watch. BJ Armstead is our facility maintenance manager. He has quite the task for a 200,000 square foot facility. And this is a very high-tech facility. So everything is automated and on the one hand, very technological, on the other hand, very technological. And so there's a lot of things to learn and quite a learning curve there. It's also keep it clean and safe. Katrina is our controller. I work with her daily to make sure we're on task financially and we're hitting all of our benchmarks. And then to round out the team, we do have an executive chef, John Tandy, who has extensive experience in catering and banquets as well as high-end restaurants and so forth. So as part of our food service, we have a cafe that you'll be able to grab healthier grab-and-go selections, as well as a full catering and banqueting option as well. And John will oversee the production on that end. Julia Soto is our guest services manager. It was important for us to have someone with a very big personality, very energetic personality, so that when you come into our facility, it's a great first impression. Julia is that person. She's phenomenal. And then Dalton Newkirk is our adventure gym manager. Dalton will oversee the activities and safety of the adventure gym, and then it will spill out over into the rest of the facility through our summer camps and our other youth programs as well. Okay. Any questions? Any
Questions for?
thoughts? Anything?
Thank you, Ben, for everything that you're doing to get it ready. Can't wait. I've gone over a few times. So I haven't been lately, but hope to get there in the next week or two before the opening. But just looking very forward to June 24th and beyond. And I also appreciate all the work that you do with Visit Williamsburg. I know that they have worked hard to be a good partner, and I appreciate you working with them as well, you and Dana. So thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. All right, we have next the consent calendar. Consent calendar consists of items that are thought not to be controversial, which we can vote on as a block. If anybody wishes to pull any item, they'll have the opportunity to do that for further information or for a separate vote. Let me just indicate that today's consent calendar consists of the following items. First is acceptance of funds in the amount of $5,399, Virginia Forfeited Assets Sharing Program. And secondly, we have the appointment of Assistant Fire Marshal and authorization of fire prevention powers. We have number 3 is the contract award of $175,420 for Chickahominy Riverfront Park playground replacement. Number 4 is a contract award of $149,708 for design services for the James City County Marina parking lot improvements. Number 5 is a contract award for $187,026 for James City County Recreation Center gymnasium and free weight area HVAC replacement. Number 6 is an employee assistance program vendor selection. Number 7 is a grant award of $1,416, a local law enforcement grant. Number 8 is a grant award of $427,250 from the Virginia Community Flood Preparedness Fund. And number 9 is minutes adoption for 3 meetings that we have had in recent times. Does anybody wish to remove any of these items for consideration?
I don't wish to remove an item, but I was hoping that after the approval of the consent, and I will move the approval of the consent agenda, that we might have an introduction to the Assistant Fire Marshal.
As noted, thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other requests? Do I have a motion to, you have a motion
Yes, sir.
to approve the consent calendar. Mr. Stevens, just call the roll, please.
Wainwright?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower? Aye. Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. And now Chief Ash?
It's not the chief, might be Joe
Joe, oh,
I think it's Chief
Joe.
Davis.
Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Davis.
Members of the board, Mr. Stevens. Joe Davis, the Fire Marshal. I'd like to introduce Ronald Herrington. Ron's been with us for about 7 years now. He's recently completed all the requirements to be an Assistant Fire Marshal, which will allow him to do certain duties under state law. Ron's, again, an experienced firefighter with us. He's also served other localities and jurisdictions, started out in our Explorer program years ago, and also as a volunteer at Station 1. So, this is Ron Herrington.
And welcome. Do you have anything you'd like to say to us?
Thank you guys for that.
Well, let me say something about this, because I think one of the great things that, we've been very fortunate to have Joe's service over the years. He retired. I thought he was done with things, but then has been back with us very much so. But I think what we are seeing here is the fact that when James City County has an employee who is doing a great job and somebody we'd like to see continue, we invest in that person. We have them gain additional training, which of course makes them attractive to our other employers too. So I do think that it is a great sign that we have the ability to retain folks who have received that training, justifying the investment we've made in your career, and we really appreciate your choosing to go into this direction. Thank you. And thank you, Joe, as always.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, we now move on to board discussions. We have a few items here. Number one is the 2026 resident survey. And Sarah Probst is going to lead our consideration of this item. Ms. Probst, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. Since 2001, the county has conducted a survey of residents on a 5 to 7 year cycle. The survey is intended to provide the county with longitudinal information on residents' opinions regarding services and planning issues. This year, the University of Virginia Weldon Cooper Center for Survey Research has been contracted to implement the survey, and staff has worked with them to update language, modify some questions, and provide a map for reference. Dr. Kara Fitzgibbon, Director of Center for Survey Research, and Dr. Elena Panzer have joined us today to elaborate on some of the changes, the process, and the timing of implementation and results rollout. Dr. Fitzgibbon was also engaged with the last James City County resident survey in 2019. After the presentation, Drs. Fitzgibbon and Panzer, Tammy Rosario, and I will be available to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you very much, Sarah. Welcome,
Hi.
Dr. Panzer.
Good afternoon. It's really nice to meet you all. Kara Fitzgibbon. And as mentioned, I was involved in the 2019 survey when we last supported you all in gathering community input. In today's presentation, I'll go over the proposed design, what's backing some of those decisions, any updates this go around, as well as a proposed timeline for that work. For those that aren't familiar with the University of Virginia Center for Survey Research, I first wanted to give you all a brief overview of our center so you have a sense of the type of partner we can be in this effort. So UVA CSR, we've been around for almost 40 years. We are a full-service academic survey center. So being a full-service center, we are involved or can be involved at every stage of that research process, from the initial conception of the study and identifying key questions to preparing sampling designs and procuring sample, questionnaire development, through data collection across multiple modes, as well as handle and oversee the data preparation, analysis, and reporting of that work. We have a team of highly skilled and trained survey professionals that come from a variety of backgrounds. And in addition, being at the university, we're immersed in kind of top, most rigorous methods and up to date on best practices of how we can reach individuals and hear from them and involve their voices. Additionally, something I want to note is that even though we're housed within the university and work with other academic researchers, really the majority of our projects are more externally, publicly facing work. And we lean into that applied research focus. We work with state agencies, nonprofits, community organizations, and quite a few local governments around Virginia, including in 2019 with you all here at James City County. The other thing I'll note about our center is that we are housed within the Weldon Cooper Center of Public Service. Within that center, there are 6 teams that are involved in both applied research as well as support to local governments through our Virginia Institute of Government, as well as leadership development through the Sorensen Institute. And I know just about a year ago, the Institute for Engagement and Negotiations supported James City County through the RAFT project. Across those teams, the through line is that we take very seriously the responsibility of being a trusted resource for both the public and those serving the public. And now, unless there are questions about CSR, the Cooper Center, I'll talk more specifically about the community survey. And just to
Can I just ask you one question?
Yes, please.
How many localities would you say you've done these kinds of surveys for in the last several years?
In the last several years, probably 10. And generally when we're working with a locality, it's usually for one of 2 main purposes. Either it is to work with that organization to look more internally and some more of an employee satisfaction, or more externally facing for a community or resident survey, either for general assessment of services, or sometimes we're brought in if there's a very specific community issue that they want to explore. So then for this community survey, it's my understanding that you all are about 4 to 5 years into your comprehensive plan. You recently adopted a strategic plan. In working with other localities, we find that these community surveys can be a really valuable touch point and check-in with the community members as you all are implementing and carrying out these strategic plans. And specifically, this survey is geared towards asking about an assessment of the locality services, potential plans. There's a section related to land use, development, sense of pace of growth, as well as then individuals' experiences within James City County. What are the standout values and experiences from their perspective? What are areas maybe they hope to have continued attention towards? So the survey is kind of far-reaching in that way. So in terms of how our center can support you all in that community survey, there's sort of 4 general areas of services that we can provide. So first is that front end in finalizing the questionnaire, finalizing the sampling design, and the methods of how we'll reach out to people. Once we've laid those plans, we will then oversee the data collection. We'll have confidential tracking of participation. That data collection will occur both online as well as by paper. Our team will be responsible then for receiving those responses, for processing that data, handling all data analysis, as well as finalizing the data file. And then finally, preparing deliverables and outputs that can be shared widely both with you all and the community and those who participated in the survey, which will include a written report of results as well as a presentation. A bit more about the design that we have planned. I'll start by noting that this design follows very closely to the 2019 survey. This is being proposed as a dual mode design where we contact households by mail, but those households then have the opportunity to complete the survey either online or by paper, whichever their preference is. Those households that then are selected to participate, we will send them the series of mailings that are outlined here. This series of mailings follows best practices and even down to the pace at which they are sent, the type of content and the format. That is very intentional and meant to encourage and support participation. So those sampled households will first receive an announcement letter signed by the county administrator or another individual from James City County. Following that announcement letter, we then send a questionnaire packet that includes a postage-paid return envelope to help support the ease of participation. Following that packet, we have planned a thank you reminder postcard, and following that postcard, a second packet. All of those mailings will include instruction and the option for individuals to complete online, should they prefer that mode. A bit more on the design. So if you'll bear with me, I'd like to get a little into technical jargon as to what is behind the proposed design. So we have plans to conduct a draw a probability-based sample of 3,000 households across James City County. And I want to underscore this point that the sample is probability-based, because at the outset of every survey, one of the key design decisions is how potential respondents are selected, invited to take a survey. And generally, that sample selection falls into two broad categories. There's probability-based and non-probability-based. With the probability-based, every unit in our frame has a known, non-zero chance of selection. So in this case, our frame is the full list of residential addresses within James City County as maintained by the US Post Office. So it's nearly exhaustive of residential addresses. That list is updated every year, and so it's maintained. From that list, we are then drawing 3,000 households, and I could tell you for each household what was their chance of selection. With a non-probability sampling approach, that can still be very effective and it's worthwhile, but in that case, we don't know who heard about the survey, who didn't. So non-probability approach could be, we have this excellent questionnaire, we put it up on our website, we put it on the James City County website, send it out in newsletters, put flyers around town. We could hear from a lot of folks, and that's valuable and worthwhile, but we don't know who did or didn't see those invitations. We don't know who didn't have that chance to participate. And critically, these statistical tests that we would run with that final data to then be able to generalize to the James City County community more broadly, those tests assume and rely on a probability-based sample. And so it's really critical how it is we select and invite folks to participate. Happy to dive into that more at any point. Thank you for your patience. So we are going to reach out to 3,000 households across James City County through this address-based design. Each of those households will receive, the first communication will be that announcement letter. On that announcement letter, and all subsequent mailings will have the James City County logo on the outer envelope. And so that is helping to add legitimacy, a sense of where the survey is coming from, who is endorsing this survey, that this is an official effort and initiative, and it is worth folks' time. In that announcement letter, the University of Virginia Center for Survey Research will be introduced, and then on subsequent mailings, those letters will contain UVA CSR branding. And that trade-off helps to reassure participants that this is an objective endeavor, that their privacy is being maintained. So we're very intentional about that handoff in communications. Another point of this design, the questionnaire has been updated for 2026. In a moment, I'll unpack that a bit further, but I also want to underscore that while we have reviewed and made light revisions to the questionnaire, we've maintained comparable questions as much as one can. We recognize the great value and importance of the longitudinal data that's been conducted. We want to maintain that consistency, and we also want to ensure that each time you all are engaging in a community survey and that participants are giving their time to fill it out, that the questions being asked are most pressing at this point in time. Another We already noted that folks will have the opportunity to complete the survey both online or paper, and that our center will be tracking response throughout data collection. That enables us to, ahead of a mailing, remove addresses where we've already heard from people. So we're not bombarding individuals with invitations if we've already heard from them. Additionally, during data cleaning, we will be able to deduplicate the data. That is, if a household responded, they sent back both questionnaires or they responded online as well as by paper, we'll only retain one response per household to go back to honoring that, the statistical assumptions of the sample. So we won't be double counting households, in other words.
Can I just ask you, what is your response rate typically nowadays?
For community surveys like this, it's in the 20%.
You're hoping to gather somewhere around 600, is that right?
Even for you all, a little higher, and there is a point where I'll unpack that further, but for you all, I'm expecting around 23%, and it's based on, both the community surveys that we've engaged in around Virginia with designs like this in the last several years, and it's also reflective of then general response rates across the country.
And is it addressed to a particular individual in the household?
So yes. So how we navigate that is, so on the one hand, we know from best practices that tends to encourage greater response. If we have dear or to John McGlennon, that makes folks feel that it is personal, it is meant for them. However, we're also mindful that for some residential addresses, the USPS might not have a name on file and/or folks move. So how we handle that is when the name is available, we have that name as well as the language or current resident. So we're still catching folks because ultimately, this is starting to get into the weeds of the sample design, but we're trying to reach whatever resident is at that address, less so than this individual resident, if that distinction makes sense. We want to make sure we're capturing whoever lives there. Other questions so far?
Yeah, just one thing is,
Yes.
when you're looking at, in other words, where you get statistically valid samples is by using a random selection process. So your random selection process is is the process by which you select those 3,000. So that's totally generated at random then.
That's right. So two caveats there. The short answer is yes. And so what's really critical then is that the list where we're drawing that sample from is high quality, exhaustive, comprehensive of our population, in this case, residents. Something that can be decided and was employed last time is whether still having a random selection, but to stratify our sample. So for example, using the public service area, that could be a way in which we draw strata within that full list where maybe we want to prioritize and or have a certain share of households sampled within versus without PSA. Or you could use zip codes or other geography. So we can stratify the sample, which could help focus the share of households while still maintaining that probability-based design.
And with a sample of, I think we have roughly 35 to 37,000 homes in the county. With that 3,000 sample, and you get maybe 600 to 700, let's say, responses. What level of confidence do you have on the results? Is that in the 80%, 90, 95?
So how we often think of that percent confidence is we will calculate an overall margin of error. So that overall margin of error is based on how many responses total. You made a great point about what is our starting population of households, because as part of that margin of error, we will include what's known as the finite population correction, where we're taking into account what is the percentage of those invited of our total population, and that becomes a factor within that margin of error calculation. To your question of, let's say we hear back from 700, that would give us a margin of error around 3.5%. So what that then tells us is, let's say 85% say they're very satisfied with the value of tax dollar for the services they receive. Then plus or minus 3.5%, so 88.5, 81.5, we would feel 95% confident that across James City County, that's where our satisfaction with tax dollar falls. Now that's an overall margin of error. For every statistic in the report and presentation that we would give back to you, each of those questions would have that 95% confidence. Are we 95% confident that finding we hear from the
Within that range,
700
yeah.
reflects the full
Okay.
JCC community?
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Other questions? And I'm winding down here. I just want to note or call attention to the handful of updates we made for the 2026, or that we're proposing for the 2026 administration of this survey. A difference since 2019, and we're doing this across resident surveys now, is we're providing that online option for completion of the survey from our first communication to residents. The reason we're doing that is we're hearing and observing more and more that people are comfortable completing online. It gives us the opportunity that as soon as someone hears from us, if they want to, they can go online and take the survey. So we're sort of more maximizing that engagement at each stage. Prior survey methodology research used to show that it's better to delay options, or in other words, let's start with one path for completion, then after a few mailings, we'll give you another option. But that's something that's now changed, and so we're being adaptive with how people want to respond. Also related to that online completion, we're now able to include QR codes as part of mailings. We still provide a short URL, or if that's how someone's most comfortable to complete online, they can type in that URL, enter their unique access code as we're tracking participation throughout. But also for those that feel comfortable with it, we include a QR code. And that would take them to the online survey. Another adjustment we made since 2019 is now allowing for a longer field period, or range of time where we will continue to accept and record responses. And that is largely because mail is a bit slower than it used to be. It is still an excellent way to reach households, but it takes a little longer to reach them, and it takes a lot longer for them to reach us. And so we've now been building into our timelines that extended window, so we can make sure, again, if someone takes the time and energy to give their feedback to you all and to the community more broadly, we want to make sure that their voice is being included in these final results, and not cut out because it took too long to reach us. And then finally, there are, I would say, minimal, maybe 5 to 10% of the questionnaire that did get revised for this go-round. Some of those edits include slight adjustment to the list of services or initiatives. So one of them in 2019, we asked community members their interest and support for an indoor sports facility, and that has clearly reached resolution. And this go-round, that item has been removed. It's now been swapped with a question on an indoor aquatic facility. Maybe that was not indoor. No, just aquatic facility. We've also further clarified phrasing on a few things, as well as made some edits to the section on development and land use. That is in part being responsive to how we have heard from residents on other community surveys, how they kind of think of these things and want to respond, kind of moving away from some agree-disagree items, again, as best practices have shown, or continue to evolve and show us how we can best reach people and how they want to answer. So there are a handful of items that were updated, but our focus has really been on maintaining that longitudinal data and comparability. So going to some of the questions that rightly so have already been raised, what we are anticipating from that sample, hearing back from around 700 That's a response rate around 23%. That is comparable to and based on our community surveys across Virginia over the last 5 years or so. As we already discussed, the sampling design and the way in which we're reaching people supports then the statistical testing and inference we can then draw. And so we can say with a precise likelihood, how confident are we that this finding we heard from those 700 are indeed or not representative of the community as a whole. And the reason, there is a reason why that particular 700 number is used. So yes, we're hearing back about between 20 and 25% from community surveys. So then we could work backwards and either raise or lower your starting number of households we're reaching out to. That 700 number supports then our ability to draw statistically significant comparisons to the 2019 survey, and we can then identify changes or consistency. But if a change is plus or minus 5 percentage points, we will be able to pick up that difference and speak to that 95% confidence. So there was a rationale for that starting sample of 3,000 and this target of hearing back from 700. That said, I am hopeful that this is actually a pretty modest estimate. When we worked with you all in 2019, we achieved a response rate around 35%, heard back from more than 1,000 households. So I think it's very reasonable to expect we can hear back from more than 700. What happens, some things that might influence that response rate, part of that is what is the connection and level engagement between residents and their local government or local community groups. And so for communities that might be especially engaged, especially interested in feedback, and or there are particular issues that are really on folks' minds, that can boost response. As well as if there might be word of mouth throughout the community that this effort is going on, that can also help support response. I'll end with a discussion of the proposed timeline for this work. So our intention is through June to finalize the questionnaire, finalize the sampling design, finalize these plans, where then in mid-July, we would be launching the survey. So in mid-July is when those first announcement letters would go out to the sampled households. And we're then leaving the survey open, or we plan to, for about 3 months. And during that time, we will send that series of postal reminders that we discussed. We'll then process and analyze that data into early 2027. So during that time, we will be doing that review of responses, deduplicating data, applying weights to the data, either in response to a stratified sampling design or post-stratification weighting. We'll be running analyses and sharing those interim findings with our team members here at the local government, and also be drafting the report. So then that has time to go through iterative review and feedback to ensure that final report is addressing the needs pressing to you all. So that final report would be published and delivered in April with a presentation back to you all late next spring. Any questions I can answer?
Questions from anybody?
So as you're getting feedback, as you're working on finalizing the survey, what is the best method process to get that feedback to you?
I don't know if that's a question best for Sarah or Tammy, but I also will very gladly receive feedback directly. In terms of time frame, ideally, we'd hear feedback in the next week or two to then allow a few more weeks for any clarification and to then make sure that you all, again, have that opportunity for a review of the final, because we need about 3 weeks to get to the printer. So target would be to have everything finalized by mid-June. In terms of communicating those edits,
Probably the best way to communicate would be through me or Tammy. And we do have space in the survey for additional questions if need be, or if there were concerns about some of the questions, we did allow for some time to do modifications.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. I look forward to any further feedback. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item, which is bike helmet ordinance discussion. And Mr. Kinsman.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as the board will recall about a month ago, we talked a little bit about the helmet laws in James City County and ran into a little confusion about the numerous defined terms that are in the code. And so what I've brought for you today is not a decision point, but something that will help me draft an ordinance that matches what the board would like. And so what I have in front of you is basically just a grid. Currently, our laws have helmet laws for bicycles on highways, streets, sidewalks, and bike paths. I note that in the definition sections, highway and street are really one and the same. I broke them out here because we did have that discussion about private roads being public for law enforcement purposes. And that's something that you could break out and say, we're not going to deal with private streets on these things. So I did break that out a little bit. Segways, as we talked about, are electric personal assistive mobility device. And unfortunately, my PDF got broken off there. We also have electric bikes as well. And electric bikes cover all of those electric motorized things that go fast. So I'm happy to take any input from the board. You don't have to do anything. You can just leave it the way it is with just bicycles, but I'm happy to take the board's direction.
We're talking about adding more, right? We were talking about the segways and the electric bikes mostly.
It was segways, electric bikes, and there is
Right.
the ability to do toy vehicles. I know the board talked a little bit about that, so.
I'm not interested in toy vehicles, though I want them to be safe, let me be clear. The concern was over the fast electric bikes and the scooters that was my concern. I'm not speaking for everybody else. Those were the two areas that I was concerned about. Not toy vehicles, but you had said something, oh gosh, and anyway, you just said it, and it just went right out.
So when you talk about these, was it under bicycles that you would say the electrical bikes?
It should have been a fourth category in there. When I changed it to PDF, it dropped out.
And
of
that
there.
includes things like motorized skateboards and the scooters.
It's a vehicle that travels on not more than 3 vehicles in contact with the ground and is equipped with pedals that allow propulsion, seat for the use of the rider, and an electric motor. It didn't have scooters involved in there. Don't believe that was anywhere in the Virginia code. They do have motorized skateboard and scooter.
That's, yeah, right.
A motorized skateboard would be like a one wheel. There's so many options out there these
know.
days.
I'm kidding. And
If you want it included, I will get it included in whichever the
But
definition
it's not
is.
automatically included.
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I think one of the issues that we see, it may be less in the county than in the city of Williamsburg, but there's so many different motorized vehicles that are running up and down the road. Worrisome. I mean, we've seen some incidents that involved traumatic brain injuries, and if helmets can help. I'd be open to considering something more fully.
Anything that's
And then
motorized
Yeah.
should have a helmet on.
Well, and I think
'Cause bike-
specifically if you're talking about like highways. So
Yeah.
I guess because I was paying attention, did happen to see a kid who couldn't have been older than 10 on John Tyler Highway across from the chapel, like pull out onto John Tyler Highway on a motorized scooter. And that's a very fast road and there's not a lot of room. I'm not interested in sidewalks and bike paths or, private streets. Those are usually streets that are very, very low speed, you usually have a lot of bikers, walkers, pets out there. But definitely any major road, kids
Street.
don't pay attention.
Street, yeah, highways and
Mhm.
streets. Because where I live, it's, everybody has to have them anyway, it doesn't matter. But at highways and streets, that's where the accidents happen. I know in Charlottesville, one day the bus was turning right onto 29, and some guy was on a bicycle and they ran over him, and he didn't have a helmet on or anything, and he died. So I think even if they're not, obviously we have it for bicycles, but the motorized ones too, I think they're dangerous because they whip out in front of people, or you don't see them until they're on top of you.
I would throw in my 2 cents worth. Ford's Colony is obviously private roads. We have a 3.5 mile private walking path loop, and our speed limit's 25 miles an hour. And I have witnessed kids without helmets on electric bicycles probably doing 35 or 40 miles an hour in traffic on our private roads. The other thing I've noticed is kids on these either little electric e-bikes or skateboards or whatever like that on our walking path. And they not only present a danger to themselves, but for everybody else that's walking there. So I'm more inclined to try to say I'd be interested in looking at something that deals with the electric bikes and scooters and skateboards and stuff like that. And I'm pretty much of a mind that I don't see them on the open highways as much as I do on the more like the residential streets. But I think we ought to put highways, streets, and for that matter, maybe even sidewalks, because that's where we get a lot of those. I've noticed that, coming out of the city too. You get a lot of them on Monticello and that little part of the road that has the walkway
That's
beside it.
dangerous for the sidewalks anyway. If you're walking on the sidewalk and they come up to you, I agree with that 100%.
It's been.
Just to clarify, Mr. Eisenhower, the county code designates private roads as public for law enforcement purposes for those neighborhoods that have 100 or more houses. So if you're talking about, Ms. Wainwright, a very small private road, then our law enforcement purposes don't reach there. And if we had something that said, say, you have to have a helmet on a bicycle on a private road, it would reach Colonial Heritage, Ford's Colony, Kings Mill. It would not reach a smaller private stub street somewhere in a neighborhood. As for sidewalks, we can ban certain things on sidewalks, including scooters. Don't know that we can do scooters on roadways yet. I don't think the Virginia code has reached up to that. Just so that you know, though, we'd have to designate those particular sidewalks and put signage up, which I think we've done for a few of them. And I can't reach sidewalks in private neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I can only do roads in private neighborhoods.
Can you say,
100 more?
for example, like in Ford's Colony, which is a private neighborhood, can you say that if you're going to be on that little motorized thing on the walkway, you've got to wear the helmet?
Cannot.
You cannot.
No,
It's
no, sir.
HOA.
That's HOA has the
HOA.
sidewalks, but we can regulate what happens on the private roads in that particular neighborhood.
I just wanted to mention that this wasn't, I was a mom that was all about the helmet, but I actually had people reached out that were concerned over seeing young people on sidewalks, on the street, using the electric bikes that were going very fast and the electric scooters, which is how this got brought to my attention. So it is a safety concern among people who have children or have seen this happen. And I wouldn't want to ban a scooter necessarily because some students use it as transportation. But I would like it done safely if possible. So.
I've seen the little scooters on 60. That's really dangerous. They have no idea, and they have no helmet on, and if you hit them, it's your fault.
I think I have enough to bring you back something that we can talk
Okay.
about
Okay,
at our
thank you.
meeting
Thank
probably later. I don't know if this is urgent, Ms. Larson, but I know that your June and July meetings are packed, so I might bring that in September if that's okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Kids, wear those helmets this summer.
We have one more item under this topic of board discussion, and that is a government center update. Mr. Ridenheimer.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Stevens, and Mr. Kinsman. I'm Brad Reinheimer, Assistant County Administrator, and I'm here to give you your monthly Government Center update. If you drive by the site, you'll see a lot of site work going on. They're continuing to install a lot of the underground stormwater piping systems. They have covered that storm arc system that I showed you the pictures of previously, but there's still a lot of work going on. They started the foundations on the elevator shafts. Some concrete pours are being done soon. I see a lot of rebar out there and a lot of work being done. That foundation work will be continuing for the next few weeks. I wanted to mention also, we did reopen a portion of the multi-use trail. The part on the southern side of the site along Depew from Long Hill to Ashbury, we reopened that site. We worked with the contractor. We got some complaints from residents, specifically one wheelchair complaint about it not being able to access the multi-use trail because there was no handicap ramp anywhere else. So we were able to work with the contractor. They paved over some of the cuts they had made for stormwater pipes to make that accessible for folks on wheelchairs. So that is back open. We should be getting the GMP, the most current GMP on the Government Center project within the next week or two. I do intend to bring a resolution memo before the board at your June work session to authorize Mr. Stevens to sign off on the final comprehensive agreement, which would include the remainder of the construction on the Government Center site. So that should be to you at the second meeting in June. Library design, we just got the 100% design documents on the library over the weekend. I haven't really had much chance to look at them yet. But that's continuing along. The CDs should be done before the end of the year, and that GMP will be before the end of the year, and you'll see stuff coming before you towards the end of the year, just like we did for the Government Center, a first phase of a comprehensive agreement to authorize some pre-ordering of steel and things like that, and then a final comprehensive agreement for the library will be coming after that. So that's the only updates I have for you right now. Other than it's wet out there right now. I was looking on the camera this morning and tons of footprints. See everybody where they walked. It's pretty wet out there right now, but the stormwater retention pond is doing its job. But site work is continuing. I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Reinheimer? No? Thank you very much. All right, we'll now move on to board considerations, and our first is a plan of finance for capital projects, and that's Courtney Rogers. Mr. Rogers, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman McClendon, members. Good to see you again. Scott told me I had to be done by 5, right? But, I think we'll move through this pretty quickly.
I don't think I've heard Sharon laugh like that in a while.
This kind of, I guess, good timing following that update on some of your projects. As many of you know, my name's Courtney Rogers with Davenport & Company. You know my partner David Rose and I, our tag team, have worked with the county now, I think, over 25 years. And part of what we do is talk about capital planning. We work with policies. Now, he was here last fall going through your CIP as you were working through the capital improvement program. And so today, what we're going to really talk about is particularly the needs for the next couple of years. And so we're going to go through an update on where we are interest rate-wise, where the tax exempt market is today. We're going to talk about the actions needed to secure bonds to continue funding these projects. And then we're going to show you what the projected impact will be on your debt service budget, as well as the 2 key policies that we have when it comes to the debt side. We'll note there on the last bullet, oh, sorry, I'm sitting here looking at my presentation and, all right. Everybody's had trouble going forward. Would you mind one slide, please? The last bullet there, just want to talk about is that we did not, for this purpose today, include anything as far as the admissions tax. I know that's something you all are considering. This takes the stance of the current budget, the proposed budget that you have. So this does not take any of that into account. So if you'll go 2 slides for me, please, ma'am. Wanted to talk about the tax exempt market. This slide shows you tax exempt yields going back to January of 25. The first little heartbeat there is Liberation Day. You might remember that's when the tariffs were introduced. The market did have a little bit of a reaction, as you can see, but very quickly settled back down. One thing I'll note there is that you always hear about the Fed and what the Fed's going to do with interest rates. I'd like to remind everyone that with our market, at least, when the Fed makes a decision going up or down with rates, it really only impacts the first 5 years. And you can see that in this graph. The dark green line at the bottom is basically the 5-year tax exempt rate. You can see how much it fell as the Fed was making changes over that period versus the regular part, the rest of the marketplace there, 10 years up to 30 years, was really sort of flat during that period. The other the significant thing that I'll point out is March of 26, you'll notice rates started going up. Not only the short-term rates, but all the rates. And that's when the conflict with Iran started. And so the market has risen higher. And really it's been about inflation more than anything. And we've seen that here in the market in the last week or so. On the next slide just gives you a sense of the 20-year interest rate only. This again is goes back to the year 2000. We basically were falling up until right before COVID, and then COVID we stayed pretty low there up until coming out of it. You can see rates came back up to what I'll call normal. We really don't know if we'll ever see those low rates again that we saw during that period, but we're kind of back into what I'll call a normal time period where kind of going back to the 20 teens, if you will, kind of that 2012 to 2018, 19 period where rates were in for a good tax exempt bond for a high rated entity like yourselves, sub 4%. And to give you a sense of that, don't have this in the presentation, but we sold bonds last week for Loudoun County, who's also AAA, triple as you are. We sold $200 million of bonds competitively last Tuesday, had 7 bidders, and sold at a 3.70 interest rate. They also had some EDA bonds, such as what we're proposing to issue. Those were issued a few minutes later, about 30 minutes later, and those we had taxable and tax exempt, and those were about 15 basis points higher. So that gives you a sense of the differential between GOs and lease. What we used to call them lease bonds are now basically EDA financing agreements. They're appropriation bonds. And I'll say this because I know that question comes up a lot about the differential. We've used 25 basis points sort of as a planning rate, if you will, the difference between GOs and these EDA bonds. And some folks may say, well, why not do the GO? Well, timing can be an issue. When we saw rates go up 10 basis points in the last week, 15 basis points is the differential. We could lose that basically in a few days. And so if we were to wait, you have an interest rate risk of if you had to go to the market. So that's one reason why we think efficiently there's a project you need to get done that going through the EDA process makes a lot of sense. 2 more slides for me, please. Let's talk about the bond overview. So essentially, we're looking to do about $200 million in project funding. These projects include, but aren't limited to, the Government Center, new library, Public Works Admin Building, the Grove Community Park, fire apparatus, and some school HVAC and roof replacements. And so what we want to do is kind of walk through where we are now in terms of existing debt. On the next slide, please. You can see we're right about $128 million. Those bonds go away in 2044. The one thing that I'll note on this slide is you'll see is that your debt service has a significant drop between the fiscal year that we're ending right now and next fiscal year. You can see it goes from roughly 21 million down to 14 million. That's a $7 million drop. So that enables us to pick up some of this new debt and be able to work it into your existing budget. On the next slide, our recommended plan of finance is to do just like what we did for Loudoun this past week, which was to sell them competitively. What that means is that we need to go through and get a bond rating. We will set it up so electronically, all the firms that on Wall Street who buy these types of bonds, anyone can bid on them. Lowest bid and lowest cost wins. It includes their fees. And so that we basically take whoever is going to be the most competitive that day, they're going to be the winner. And so as a part of that, as I mentioned, we have to go through and get the bond ratings. We've suggested that we go have the agencies actually come and do a tour. We want to show off the new building that was talked about earlier that's about to open. We want to talk about all the great economic development things that are going on and show them the growth that's been happening here in the area. So we have that tentatively set up. We've got the agencies already on the calendar for mid-June. And so we'll have each of them come in and do a tour, as well as talk about financials and the plan of finance, and show them how this debt will, some of the same slides you'll see in a moment, we're going to show them where we show how it looks with the credit from a debt ratio standpoint, as well as what it looks like from a payback standpoint. These will be, you'll carry as you have several years now, a AAA from all three, the major agencies, on an issuer rating basis. As some of you might know, because these are appropriation based and there's risk that you could, or some board in the future, not appropriate, they carry one notch lower. So these would be rated, we expect them to be rated AA1, AA+, which, as I mentioned, the same that we did with Loudon, would be maybe 15 basis points differential on average. Part of the process is we have to put together an offering document. That's the preliminary official statement that bond counsel has been working on with staff. We're going to talk about some of those documents here in just a moment. These will be locked in. These rates will be locked in at that point. So when we do the sale, which we'll talk about schedule here in a moment, and so those will be locked in all the way out through the end of the 20 years that we're proposing here. Well, the next slide gives you a little bit of where we think the market is. We put a little bit of a cushion in there as of May 20th. We've added 25 basis points for cushion. You can see it's roughly about $15.5 million once we're going to work up, and we'll show you that graphic here in just a moment. A little bit of bond math. Buyers out there right now want to have a higher coupon than the yield. Yields, as I mentioned, are going to be, we expect to be on average below 4%, but they like to have a coupon higher than that. They're willing to pay you a premium for that. They end up paying you more than 100 cents on the dollar. So we'll be able to issue less than $200 million in order to produce $200 million in bonds. And that's something that we've seen in the marketplace for several years now. Just want you to be, just so later you might see the number come in under 200, but just know we will be producing a little over 200 for the projects that are needed over the next 24 months, roughly. On the next slide, we've shown you the existing debt service, the $127 million now, plus this $196 added to it. And what you'll see in the column there is the total debt service goes from about $21 million, peaks there at $28.5 million in 2029, 2030. Graphically, it's probably an easier way to see it on the next slide. And what you'll see is the dotted line shows you where the debt service is now. And you'll see as it inches up into 28, 29, peaks there 29 and 30, and then comes back down as some of the existing bonds that we have are paid off over the next several years. And then next two slides are going to show you the graphics of the key debt ratios. The first is total outstanding debt, how much total debt we have outstanding divided by your assessed value, both personal and real. We have a guideline of 3%. You're at 1.5%. So we're well under that policy. And the next one is more of a budget type policy, which is the annual debt service divided by revenues or divided by budget. Think of it that way. Your existing debt in dark green, light green being the new bonds, just a shade over 6%, 10 to 12, 12 being the highest is our policy. We don't want to go above that. And that's a good level. We're right in the half of it right now. So the last slide here is the schedule. So here we are today presenting the plan. When I'm done, we're going to ask you to consider the required bond resolutions, which will include the financing documents as well as the POS. Chris Culp from Hunt & Andrews, who's your bond counsel, is here. He can answer any questions. As I mentioned, mid-June, we're going to have the agencies in to do a tour and talk about the financing itself and finances over the last several years. And then because of the timing, the EDA meeting is not until June 16th. They will also take these documents up at that time. And then we're looking to get bonds in the market after the 1st of August and close sometime later in August. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Appreciate that. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Rogers?
I just one, or maybe sort of a request just for some historical type data that you may be able to provide to us later. And that is taking a look at what our use of debt has been over the last 20, 30, 40 years. Okay. What's our total outstanding debt at each point, and then to see how that adjusts for inflation. Because that, to me, you take a look at it. I can remember back in 2008, we did three major school projects in 2 years, and I think we incurred a significant amount of debt at that point. In absolute dollars, it may not be as much as we're looking at right now, but in inflation-adjusted dollars, it was probably pretty significant. And I want to make sure that we can have a look at that as we go forward, because I think it's important for folks to recognize that this is something that we are very capital intensive as an organization, predominantly with schools and school buildings. We have a huge number of assets that we have to maintain like that, and that we've done it quite efficiently, I think. And the fact is, we just had those 3 schools, I think, is where we've just lost that debt, paid that debt off, and now we have that
That's
debt
right.
capacity to help move over to the next one. But to try to put into perspective for us for a little bit of the long range of
Which
where,
we
what our
did,
history
maybe a
has been.
little calendar kind of showing
Yeah.
where some of those debt items
Yeah.
were and what the projects were. Because
Exactly.
I remember when I started in my early 90s, a high school in Virginia was $80 million, maybe, give or take,
No.
depending upon size of number of students and all that. Because I've been working with Loudon for 30 years, and they've been issuing debt for a long time from schools. It's now in the 160s for a high school. So it's definitely doubled in middle schools and elementary schools. I think elementary schools were maybe 22 million back when I first started, and now they're 40 million plus. And so you're absolutely correct. Everything's got more expensive. We've picked up a little more steam in the last several years post-COVID with a lot of these projects, but it is kind of crazy to see some of the project costs now for different things.
Well, and one of the other factors too is that, like you mentioned, at COVID, there's this dip because we basically retrenched because of not knowing what was going to happen to the budget, and a lot of capital needs got pushed out. So that eventually that catches up with you. You have to do it, and so a matter of trying to get all these air conditioning systems and roof repairs and stuff, and even some of the newer construction, ultimately has to be done. So.
You're absolutely right, and I will say, just in my experience overall with capital projects, we've done more what I'll call follow-up financings, where we went out and borrowed because we thought it was going to cost this, or the county thought it was going to cost this, and then they came back later and said, we need more money. I just did a project that was started in COVID. I think it was a high school that's just now getting complete. We just had to go borrow another $17 million to finish a $150 million high school.
Yeah, and I don't think we've had to do that on any of our projects, have we?
I don't recall lately of any, for sure, but
We haven't done any significant borrowing, any borrowing for projects. We've had some where a project might have been over $500,000 and we had money within the capital fund to move money to cover those, but we haven't had any of those large
nothing of
scale
that
differences.
magnitude, I don't think.
We have not.
If anything, it was, we found some money to maybe finish it off, a few million here or there, but nothing that as large as the project I just suggested.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Could you just go back to the list that you had of,
Projects, right? That's what I want to see too.
Slide 6, please. One more. There you go. There it is.
which I realize it's a lot of, that seems like quite a bit of things.
A lot of different projects in there.
Yes.
Yeah, what's it?
And
Can
then-
I follow up on?
Sure,
this?
sure.
Because, for instance, the Grove Community Park has had other financing that was behind it, actually COVID money.
One time Grove Park was funded with some of the ARPA money, is we had to have timelines of that money being spent. I think we had shifted it to other projects, so we didn't lose that funding, and we're back this year to, I believe, borrowing for the Grove Park. And I don't know if Ms. McCarthy can give you that total amount, but I think it is for the construction.
As I believe we did do pay-as-you-go funding for the land for the community park. Now this would be the actual improvements to that park. This is also a combined borrowing. It's really 2 years' worth of projects. We originally had planned to borrow in fiscal year 2026. We were able to delay that borrowing and do a combined borrowing. Part of that helped us avoid the situation of having to come back. It also allowed us to save quite a bit of money this year by postponing that borrowing.
If you can, on these projects like this, some of them, for example, the Government Center and the new library, we've already borrowed some money, haven't we?
We have. We
All right, and
borrowed $12 million.
When you're looking at this particular issue of $204 million and how much it is, it might be helpful if we could get an idea of how much of that is for Government Center, new library, how much for each one of those and stuff, because I think you'll find it interesting to how the breakout goes.
Absolutely do.
Okay, thank you.
Then, Ms. McCarthy, as time goes on, something comes up. What's then? What then?
in terms of another project that may
Right.
need financing as well. As you know, we do project our borrowing capacity as well as our capital needs 5 years.
And we're below,
That's correct.
yeah.
And so we will continue to do those projections, but we're also doing those projections in tandem with our ratios to make sure that we are continuing to look at that and make sure we're still staying way within our ratios. And so as part of the adopted budget, now that we have this borrowing a little bit more fine-tuned, we'll build in this borrowing and we'll update all those projections for the next 5 years for our capital fund, our debt service fund, as well as our operating fund, so that we can look at all three of those in tandem.
And again, I think to me, two of the most significant slides here were where you showed our policies, which I think are very conservative policies, and we are well below them in terms of our ratio to the assessed value of the community. We're about at half right now and on track to go down compared to our policy. And then in terms of the other factor, we are not only way below our policy, but we are also below a target beneath that policy limit. So these are really pretty conservative estimates of caution that we've taken in terms of taking on debt over the years.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, too, just because it's fresh on my mind, because we just got finished with the rating process with Loudon. They're right around 8% in terms of their debt to revenues policy versus you're at 6%. Now, we know we do have some other debt down the road that was probably 2 to 3 years down the road, but it's not as significant as this amount.
They've got 125 data centers. What do they need to borrow money for?
You said I got till 5.
I'm perplexed, but that's okay. That's an editorial comment.
They also have a $2 billion CIP, so.
Yeah, true.
It's
So,
a little nutty.
got it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Appreciate the information and presentation. Okay, so at this point, then the question is for board discussion and hopefully resolution to address this financial plan. Anybody have any questions, any comments you'd like to make about this before we move forward, or I'll ask for a motion.
I'll move the motion.
Motion is to approve
The resolution.
Resolution. Okay. Ms. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Ms. Wainwright?
No.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. So now we move on to, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And we are now down to the admissions tax ordinance.
All right, good evening, Chair, members of the board. This presentation contains information on 3 agenda topics this afternoon. We'll start with the admissions tax. I'll also be covering the meals tax and the budget adoption. Separate board action will be required for each of those separate items following this presentation. I wanted to take a moment to recap the significant potential changes to the proposed budget under consideration for the 2027 budget adoption. In addition to the 3-cent real estate tax reduction included in the proposed budget, a 2 cents one-time real estate tax credit has been included, which would appear on the taxpayers' December 2026 and June 2027 tax bills by reducing the amount that's actually owed. Another change to the proposed budget is the postponement of the proposed 2% increase in the meals tax. The nature of the change is to move the effective date back by 6 months, from July 1st, 2026 to January 1st, 2027. This provides the Commissioner of Revenue time to work with the software vendor and the businesses to prepare for the change, while also providing some relief to the taxpayers. Under consideration is the implementation of an admissions tax, which until now, the Code of Virginia did not allow James City County to impose. The decision points are to exclude it from the budget adoption this afternoon or to include it, set the rate, as well as the effective date. This errata sheet shows the net impact of these changes, which primarily comprise a use of unassigned fund balance for the real estate tax credit and $1 million revenue loss by delaying the meals tax increase. The revenue loss is offset by reducing county and school capital project and maintenance expenditures by $1.2 million and increasing the general fund's contingency by $200,000. An admissions tax here is not included. Under option 2, the adopted budget would include the real estate tax credit and the delay of the meals tax effective date and include an admissions tax. This new revenue source helps to diversify the revenue base with a large percentage being paid by the visitors to our area. Based on previous discussions with the board, we drafted an ordinance and a budget for your consideration that establishes an admissions tax that would only apply to amusement/theme parks as well as movie theaters. The rate would be 6% and with an effective date of July 1st, 2026. This errata sheet shows the net impact of these changes in green, which comprise the same use of unassigned fund balance for the real estate tax credit, $1 million revenue loss by delaying the meals tax increase as shown in option 1, but then it builds in an estimated $5 million in revenue from the admissions tax. The revenue from the admissions tax would be used for debt service and capital purposes. This effectively takes pressure off of the general fund in fiscal year 2027 as well as future years. The increase transferred to the debt service fund of $1.5 million that was included in the proposed budget effectively goes away. $1 million of that loss is due to the delay in the meals tax. The other $500,000 is reallocated as follows. Again, increasing the general fund contingency from $200,000 to $400,000 and providing $300,000 for 2.5 high-priority full-time equivalent positions, 1.5 of which is in public safety and 1 would be in stormwater. The table on the right is for demonstrative purposes. It shows the potential impacts to the 28 plan, given that the admissions tax would have that ongoing impact. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Do you have any questions for Ms. McCarthy?
Well, my understanding of this is we have actually three ordinances, one for the admissions tax, one for the meals tax, and then one resolution of adoption for the budget. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Question at all?
Could you go back to the latest of the, yes, thank you. And I'm sorry, could you go back one more? So we're taking out $3,650,000 out of the fund balance for the credit.
Correct.
And then go forward again, 2, please. Thank you. And then you expect to get 5 from the admissions tax.
Correct.
Estimated. Okay.
And here we did show both years because, again, the admissions tax would impact both 27 and 28. Under option 1, the impacts are only to 2027.
Thank you.
I have any discussion or a motion?
Well, I mean, in looking at the information that she gave us, we could, I would guess I would first say the admissions tax. I understand it says movies. I'm struggling with picking on an amusement park and a movie. It would seem that, but not wanting to have school programming or charities programming having to worry about emissions tax. And I guess as we move forward in this, can you add, can you take away? I mean, I see the county attorney shaking his head. So,
As far as I think, Attorney and I have spoken a couple times about what if you decided you want to do something different later, add to or take away. And the answer is you'd go back through the process and amend the ordinance, but you could make that change at any point in time. It's just going back through that process.
One question I had is by adding the theaters, how much does that add to the revenue as opposed to the theme parks?
My understanding from the Commissioner of Revenue is because we really only have one movie theater, to divulge that information will allow another business to back into their gross receipts. However, we do not believe it to be significant. We did find in drafting the ordinance, it was easier to pinpoint those things you wanted to include rather than the full list of things you'd like to exclude.
So the question, if we excluded nonprofit activities or school and other kind of oriented activities, but said other for-profit events, so something like a concert that was being provided by a profit-making group, that would be included in this kind of an event, even if it's not an ongoing kind of event. It's a one-off, right? I think that would be.
Looking at the county attorney to
me
answer
too.
that.
Mr. McGlennon, you could do that. We had concerts originally in there and then ended up pulling it out because it ended up being kind of complicated figuring out, well, does that include the government concerts or not? So it's whatever the board would like. We're pretty open-ended on the ordinance.
and what did you base the, like, the average you thought you would get from an amusement ticket?
How did I come up with a revenue
Yes.
estimate, essentially?
Yes.
It is what I hope to be a conservative estimate. It is quite a challenge because, again, I'm not privy to all the details to come up with a probably better estimate. We do have certain information that's provided through the assessment process. We utilize that information. It's a report that our consultant provided in order to assess that commercial property for real estate purposes. It does include ticket sales and ticket receipts, and that was the primary source of information we used to back into what we believe the annual revenue would be.
Well, I'm gonna, if anyone else is gonna, I'm gonna move the adoption of the ordinance specifying a 5% rate and excluding and including the movie theaters, I think, for this year. Now, any discussion?
That's an amendment to the existing
Draft ordinance.
draft
we have.
ordinance, okay.
Draft
And-
ordinance
and-
was at 6, and that would have an impact on your budget as
And it would
well, which is
begin
fine.
July 1st of 2026. Okay.
And that is fine. It will probably mean that the budget ordinance and resolution, we will need to
Right.
adjust as well, which maybe make it, we wouldn't have your final numbers today for that because it will change the numbers in the budget, which is fine. Just put you adopting a budget at a later time, I think. Is that a significant change to the resolution? Is it enough we could redline, or is it throughout the budget?
For Adam. I think what I would recommend would be to adopt the budget tonight, potentially with a use of fund balance to make up perhaps for the difference between the 5% and the 6%. That leaves your total budget the same number. but allows you to move forward, at
And
least
what
from a
if-
budget perspective.
And you said you've done a conservative, what you believe to be a conservative estimate. So if by going down a percentage, it's not required to do that. At
Yes,
some point, you will not do that.
correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, so we can move ahead with the ordinance at 5% today, and still adopt the budget, today.
I believe you can as long as the total amount that you're adopting stays the same. It's just a shift in revenue sources.
Made your motion.
I've made my motion. Any discussion? I will simply say that I think it is an important opportunity for us to take advantage of the fact that the General Assembly has provided us with this admissions tax for the first time, and that we do have an opportunity with this admissions tax to provide some additional revenue that would not be derived from real estate tax rates. I think that's an important consideration. I'm very sensitive to the fact that our attractions are critically important to our tourism industry, to our community's health and well-being, but I think this will be something that can be accommodated fairly effectively. I appreciate very much the close relationship we've had with Busch Gardens in particular, but I do think that this is an opportunity. And I think the fact that we did ask explicitly for the General Assembly to act on this matter, it would not be fair to those who sponsored this legislation and who worked for its passage to now turn around and say, well, never mind. So I think that the fact that we can benefit from the large number of tourists that will come to the area and will visit and will not be impacted by a fee that is likely to be significantly lower than they might be paying for parking at that at a particular amusement park anyway. So that would be my recommendation.
I'd like to say, though, just because we can doesn't mean we have to do it. That's
Certainly true.
Yeah, thank you.
And my very tempered response would be that our responsibility is not to our state legislatures. Our responsibility is to our citizens and what they've repeatedly asked us to do, which is be fiscally responsible and not raise taxes on them.
That's correct. And it is in fact the case that the vast majority of these taxes will not be imposed upon our citizens, but rather on visitors to the area, both local and in the broader community across the country. Other discussion? Mrs. Stevens, just call the roll, please.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Wainwright?
No.
Ms. Knoll?
No.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. All right. Now move on to the question of the meals tax, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to move that?
Mhm.
I would move that. But I do want to say that the Restaurant Association I've met with them, reached out to them. You know, they are very willing to work with this board. They realize that they've both York County and Williamsburg have both raised their meals tax recently, and as you might imagine, they want to make sure that their employees are employed and that people continue to go out. And just to put it into perspective, if you spend $5,000 a year eating out, it would be $100 additional a year. And I'm not taking $100 lightly, but I just want to make sure that we put things in perspective and realize what we're talking about And again, similar to the admissions tax, it is a revenue driver that will be shared. And also, I was in a place this weekend that the meals tax was 8.30 and every restaurant was packed. So, I think across this country, people, localities are having to face other ways other than real estate tax to raise their revenue for much needed things. And I do think that this county has been fiscally responsible. I think that in our community budget meeting and the meetings that we've had with Mr. Stevens, I think he's shown that we have been fiscally responsible as a county. We work very hard to keep costs in line. I think the presentation we just had by Courtney showed that this county's managed very well. And so, I feel that needs to be said. So, thank you.
I would just, in addition to agreeing with what Ms. Larson just said about the recognition that this will be in line with what's been happening in the county, in the city and York County, that it is also the case that our citizens will benefit from this in terms of the fact that a significant portion of this additional cost will in fact be paid by visitors to the area who are, when they go on vacation, expecting to be taxed on the meals that they consume. So I think that it will not be a factor that affects very many people in a significant way.
I'll just add, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to change anybody's opinion, but what I've been hearing anecdotally and then also from servers in the restaurants is, yeah, people are still going out to eat. It always amazes me when we're in a dip or in a little recession, you go to a restaurant and they are still pretty full. But what we're hearing is they're not ordering drinks, they're not ordering dessert, they're not ordering appetizers. And so I did a quick calculation for an average family of 4 with drinks and a shared dessert. That'd be about $81 with $9 in tax and an $18 tip for the server. It would be so about $9 in tax for that revenue for the county. Once you take out just drinks, and I'm not talking about expensive drinks, I'm talking about a $2.99 soda and the dessert, that drops the bill to $60. It drops the tax to $6.60, and it drops the tip for that server to $13. So even if we raise the meals tax to 6% instead of 4%, that only brings the tax back up to $7.80. So it's still a drop in tax revenue. It's still a significant drop in tips, which I think is what our servers are seeing. And imagine if every single table over the 20 or 30 tables they serve, every shift dropped $4 to $5 in tips. Our servers work hard. They basically only make tips. And I think there's going to be a ripple effect that has an impact that I'm not sure has been taken into consideration. And I don't think we're going to bring in a lot more tax because people are going to be having a smaller bill. And they're already doing it because I feel like every time the conversation comes up, someone else is telling me that, yep, we're not ordering sodas anymore. We're ordering water. And I come from a family, we just trained our kids. You don't get sodas out. That's what we get at sale at grocery store. But I just think there's going to be ripple effects and repercussions on our servers, our restaurant owners, and our citizens. And I think it's been very clear that, yeah, fiscal responsibility is making budget, but sometimes it's also cutting spending instead of consistently increasing revenue.
So I'll just add that in fairness, I think we could agree on this. It's not I drink water too, because rarely today do you find a $2.99 soda. Most of them are $3.99.
Probably 2019.
And, my husband went to a restaurant recently, not here in James City County, but eh, very close, where he paid like $30 and got 3 pieces of meat. So it's not just meals tax that's causing people to not eat out. It is very expensive to eat out. And so, that's another thing that it's not just because of meals tax. So, but, and I'm not opposed to cutting, and we've been provided with a list, what, in moving forward through the year, even if this budget is approved, we can certainly look at things that, Mr. Stevens answered a question today about flock cameras and what we pay for those. And of course, that's off the meals tax. Sorry. I'll go to that during the budget discussion. Sorry.
That's okay.
I moved them. I was just going to say that, yes, they're 56,000. So do you cut those? But then we've had instances this year where they have caught a person that has done terrible things. So do you cut that out to save 56,000? There's public safety. We've added back in 2 public safety positions that we know we need. Our Connect program, that because we have a largely retired population, very much depend on our Connect program. And so, it's very tough calls during budget time.
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the things for us all to recognize is we will have differing perspectives in some of these matters. From my perspective, the amount of money generated by the meals tax is fairly significant. Ms. McCarthy, about what would be the impact of the 2 cents? Again, just as a reminder.
It's about 2.4 million
$2.4 million.
for each percent.
Oh, for each percent.
Yes.
So add them together and it's what, about 3 cents on the tax rate? Is that right? Yeah. So, to me, when we recognize that a significant portion of that money is going to be coming from folks who are coming here on vacations and tourism, it's not going to be a make or break deal for them. They're going to be used to that level of taxation, at least in many instances. But they're also not probably going to be influenced by something that's going to add $1 or $2 to their budget, to their cost of the meal. So that's, I think, an indication that we ought to recognize that this is a way for us to move forward and to protect some of the essential services that we are trying to make sure are maintained in the community. Other? If not, we have a resolution. Do we have a resolution?
I did move it.
Okay. And the resolution would be?
Ordinance.
An ordinance, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. An ordinance.
Yes, I moved the ordinance.
Okay. Mr. Stevens, you call the roll, please.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Ms. Wainwright?
No.
Ms. Knoll?
No.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. And so now we move to the adoption of the resolution of appropriation.
Glenn, and if I may add something, as I had a moment to think through this a little bit, one of the options you would have, again, is leaving the revenue and the expenditure budget as presented with the 6% instead of 5%. We would do a 5%, and if the revenue does not come in, if it turns out not to be conservative or sufficient, another option would be to transfer less funds to the debt service fund, since that's where the admission tax would go anyway. And we do have a pretty substantial debt service reserve, so we would be able to do that without jeopardizing anything.
Great, and we can do that with the resolution of appropriation today.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So,
I will first move the resolution of appropriation and then go to discussion, I guess, if you want.
Larson, would that be with option 2 with the admissions tax?
Yes.
I'm sorry, do you want to? Yes?
Well, I just would like to thank staff, if I could, for all the work. Mr. Stevens, for all of your work as well. And, one thing that I haven't really appreciated maybe or liked about this is this budget is, it seems as though it's, we've gotten a lot of emails in the last couple of days about, and that's, I started one thing. Let me start with the emails that we've received in the last couple of days. And what we've heard is, I moved here from, I came here looking for low taxes. I've come here, now you all are going, somebody said, there's just like New Jersey where I left. And I assure you, our taxes are nothing like New Jersey. At the tax rate that we have, nothing like New Jersey. And no disrespect to New Jersey, but we offer a high quality community, a safe community, and frankly, when we have a lot of people move here, that costs money. That's an increase in the services that we offer, the amount of people that we need here. I had somebody from staff tell me, well, let's say we need a new fire piece of equipment. It's not just saying somebody to call up and get a fire. You have to have somebody in purchasing that goes out and gets that. And you have to have the person from human resources that finds the person that's going to operate that equipment. So it's not just cutting, you just can't just cut, because there's a lot of things that go into putting something together. And so when we have an increase in population like we've had, we have to account for that, and accounting for that often takes people and resources. And so while I appreciate that people have moved here, and I welcome them, and I'm so glad they're here, it's just not operating as though we were a county of 37,000 people. We are now a county of 83,000 plus. And, we've also gotten a lot of comments about the government center. Government center's unnecessary. Okay, if we're not going to do the government center, as we've talked about many, many times, we did a space needs study. We talked about maintaining, what that would cost. And the difference in that was not that big. So we decided, well, rather than invest in a building that's 50 years old, we're going to build a new building. We're going to consolidate our general services building. As you've heard me, it's often referred to as the MASH building. We're finally, that was a temporary building. We're putting people in where they need to be in order to serve a community of this size. And so I think, I hope people are looking at the community budget meeting. Mr. Stevens is very open. I believe everybody on the James City County, they're always willing to have a discussion about, why there's these expenses, what they've gone to. I'm never been opposed to cutting. I just, where is it that we want to cut? Do we want to close our parks one day a week, close our rec center one day a week? Do we, where is it that we want to do? I don't believe that those kind of cuts should be on the backs of our employees, because as we know, as we've discussed from the dais, July 1, our neighboring community is raising their compensation higher. We've got excellent people that work here. We do not want to lose them. And so if we do not keep up with their compensation, we'll find ourselves in the same spot we were 2 years ago, when I believe, was it 5 million adjustment that we had to do for compensation, which that's another, there is no tax credit at that point. So, going back to my original, one thing I have not enjoyed about this budget, and budgets are rough and you got to work through them, but the pitting as though I don't understand about where the struggle is, and that's just simply not true. I live in a modest home. I paid $279,000 for it. My husband and I have remained in that home for the last 20 years, partly because, we realized that by moving, we would possibly have to go into a neighborhood that had a mandatory HOA, what that would do cost-wise, or just we've lived within our means. And so I do understand, and I have empathy for people that, moved in in a modest home and they've watched those, you know, their value go up. Though I think if you really think about it, I think you want your home value to be high. Realize that you may not sell that home, but that is not the way that home assessments are made. They don't ask, are you planning to sell your home? There is a state code for that, and how those assessments are done. But I'm very happy that my value of my home has raised, and I appreciate the high value that I get for my tax dollar in this community. My husband was looking through we were getting our tax papers together a few months ago. We're not behind, for our yearly taxes, and he looked at me and he'd added all of our personal property up and our tax that we paid on our home, and he said, wow, we are so blessed to live in this community for this amount of money. And yes, is it that we have to pinch some pennies sometimes? Absolutely. But I do feel that way today, and I appreciate everything that everybody did in order to get this budget. Thank you.
Other comments? Well, if everybody else is done, I have a few comments I'd like to make. You know, when we go through the budget process, there are a couple of things that we always want to try to keep in mind. For me, I like to know that when we get a proposal from our county administrator, whether it's Mr. Stevens or one of our previous county administrators, that they've done everything they can to try to figure out a reasonable, fair way of appropriating costs and providing services. I have a high degree of confidence in the staff that have put together this budget, and I know that they made tough decisions about whether or not to add new staffing, new programs, other opportunities that might make the community even better than it is. And it does concern me when people come and say, well, we loved your community, we just thought this would be a terrific place to be, but now lower your taxes. And I guess I wonder why it is that they think that we are such a wonderful place to live. It is because our citizens have generously supported the cost of providing high-quality services. Now, I say generously, but let's also understand that our tax rate compared to the national average is low. That doesn't mean that people evaluate it based on, well, what people are paying in other places around the country. They're only basing it on what they're paying now or maybe what they paid before. But if we want to maintain a premier community, we recognize that there are some costs to that, and those costs are borne through this process. But there's also been a fair amount of either misinformation or distortion of information or kind of unclear information that's been disseminated around this whole question of the budget. And I think it's important for us to kind of take a little bit of a look at the ways in which people may be thinking about the budget that's under consideration right now. Earlier this year, most of us received this kind of a postcard that had on it information about your current residential property assessment and the land value and the new assessment amount and what the tax bill would be under your existing situation and under the new assessment, assuming we kept the tax rate where it was. But this only tells a little part of the story because we understood that after a previous cycle of fairly high assessments where we did what we could to control costs as well as we were able without sacrificing the quality of the community, that it was important for us to recognize that if we had the opportunity, we ought to reduce the tax rate. And so the board communicated to the county administrator our anticipation, our expectation that people would be looking for some kind of reduction in the tax rate because of the fact that they had been through a very high change in assessments and a smaller one in this go-round, but still a significant one. So we anticipated that would be the case and supported the notion of reducing the tax rate from 83 cents to 80 cents. We also said that when we heard concerns, that we wanted to do a little bit more than that. And that would be to increase taxes, to take a tax credit, as we had previously, of 2 cents, to bring the effective tax rate down to 78 cents per $100 in this proposed budget. And so rather than looking at this card as the be-all and end-all of consideration and the rate of increase that you might derive from that, rather than a 7.5% increase in property taxes, we're really looking at a little less than 5%, 4.8%, for all taxpayers across the board. And I think it's important to recognize that for that person who owned a house that was the average house cost in James City County 2 years ago, $412,000 roughly, where they were paying a tax rate, a tax of $3,419. If they had experienced the average assessment increase, which was about 11%, that would bring them up to about $462,000 for the average home in the county. And that would mean that their tax at 83 cents would be $3,834, or a little bit over $400 of an increase. Okay, but that's not what happened. Because first of all, we did have the change in the tax rate from 83 cents down to 80 cents, meaning that rather than having a tax increase of $415, the tax increase would now be $277. Okay, and that in fact, by then moving on to provide a 2-cent tax credit, that number would drop again to the point where the tax rate or the tax increase for this coming year on an average house experiencing the average assessment increase, $184, essentially $15 a month. Now, to me, recognizing that we do have costs that are somewhat within our control, but not entirely, things like the hot labor market that exists for public safety officers and other employees with skills that the county relies upon, the increased energy costs driven by spiking gasoline prices and other factors. We have to be prepared for the impact that is going to occur there. But the relative change in the tax bill for the average home experiencing the average assessment increase, $184. And that, to me, seems like a reasonable expectation. Meals tax. We talked about the meals tax generating or costing a person who goes out once a week and spends $100 on a dinner, and that their tax increase based on that would be, yes, a 50% increase in the tax rate, but $99 over the total of the year. And most of that cost would be paid for by people who were not residents of James City County. The overwhelming majority of it would be paid by people who are not residents of James City County, allowing us to shift some of the cost of government off of residential property owners in recognition of our need to be careful fiscal stewards. So as I look at the kind of changes that are the kind of experiences we've had with this year's budget, you know, it's kind of important to just think about some aspects of this that also are considerable. We talk sometimes now as if everybody is getting a 7.5% increase in their property taxes. Well, now some people are going to get a higher increase in their taxes because their assessments have gone up substantially. And those assessments are driven largely by the value of the property on the market. Okay. But there are some people who are not going to experience a tax increase, will in fact experience a tax reduction. 18.6% of our residents are going to be receiving tax bills which should reflect a decrease in their tax because their property values increased less than 6%. And in fact, if we take into account the cost of living index, which drives Social Security payments, for instance, where we see about a 3% increase in Social Security taxes, and look at those people who are either experiencing a lower than 6% increase, which means that they would be essentially paying the same or less tax than before, and those who are paying the same plus the 3% cost of living difference, we're talking about properties that account for 35.7% of our taxpayers. Now, when we or our residential parcels, let me put it that way instead. Now, we might say, oh, well, you know, we've received lots of emails. Many of those emails have said, you're raising my real estate taxes 7.5%, and that's too much. Cut, cut, cut. Okay. Well, some of those people are not actually experiencing that kind of increase. 1 out of 3 residents are only experiencing a change in their taxes that either reduces their tax bill or produces a tax bill which is flat plus the cost of living adjustment of 3%. Just as a couple of quick examples, if you live in, let's see, Chickahominy Haven in the interior, you are paying, you should experience a reduction in your tax rate. If you live on a canal, you should experience a reduction in your tax payment. And if you are on the river, you should not. Your property values would have increased at a more rapid rate than the other lots in that neighborhood. Okay. If you live in Colonial Heritage and you live in a detached home, your tax bill should go down. If you live in an attached home, your property tax should go down. Okay. So there's no doubt that there are people experiencing increases. Some are anomalous, we believe, thinking that there are some really dramatic increases that we need to study more carefully and determine a method of improving. But before we sort of assume that everyone is experiencing the same impact and that impact is going to be somehow or another life-changing, I don't think the evidence really supports that notion. Again, that's not to say that there won't be some cases that deserve to be reevaluated and may have already been reevaluated to the benefit of the taxpayer, but it is an important consideration. So with that, Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll?
Ms. Null?
Starting, yeah.
On Ms. Larson's motion? Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Wainwright?
No.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. All right, so we have the adoption of the resolution of appropriation.
That was it.
We move on now to board requests and directives.
Let me guess. So Wednesday, the 13th, I did my second radio spot with our local Williamsburg radio. Always fun, and he's a great guy to hang out with and talk to, and makes it very easy to do that spot.
Brian.
Yep. Yep. The next day, on Thursday the 14th, we trying to remember, was everybody there? Or were we missing somebody at the Kongsberg office ribbon cutting? Yeah, we were all there.
We were out there.
Beautiful office, gracious hosts, delicious food. It was just a great time to talk to them, hear a little bit more of the history of Kongsberg and how they came to the area, and they are just super excited to be here. On Tuesday the 19th, I went and visited one of our local farms who is trying to get up and running. They're on Jolly Pond Road. Had a great 2-hour tour. Unfortunately, came home with a couple of hitchhikers from the farm. Just it was really nice to see a family, a property that's been in the family for a long time, but they are new to the area and really trying to make agritourism work for them. So trying to figure out whatever we can do to help them with that. It's a beautiful, beautiful property. And then, of course, we had the County Employee Service Awards this past Friday. The rain held out for us during that time, and just great to see a lot of the employees and be a part of the recognition of the hard work and just the longevity that so many of our employees have.
I went to the police awards dinner, which was phenomenal. All of us were there except Ms. Wainwright, who couldn't attend. I went to the grand opening of Axe, the Axe company where you throw the axe. Now he has a portable cage or whatever he pulls behind his truck so you can hire them for parties and so forth. And they had a grand opening over at Ale Works. It was very interesting. Of course, came to the employee awards, went to my Hampton Roads Workforce Council meeting. Very, very interesting group of people and very informative. Somebody was there talking about SCORE, and I'd known about that from other events, things I had been involved in, but very nice meeting. And I have to go to another one next month, but it's down in Suffolk. And the Kongsbergs could not be happier. And when Ms. Wainwright and I have our upcoming town hall meeting, I'm going to ask Mr. Manning, who was there, who's the site manager. I already asked him to come speak to us a little bit, to tell us what's going on there, because so many people in our districts don't know what's all that earth moving and all that stuff, and they don't know. So I think that
There's
will be
a lot of earth moving
a
there.
lot of earth moving. And so we're going to have him come, and he said he'd be happy to come. And it was a pleasure meeting him. That's it.
Aside from everything that's already been mentioned, Kongsberg Service Awards and Police Awards, which were wonderful. I really enjoyed being at all of those. I only had one question, and that was for Mr. Stevens. I saw somewhere that the city had authorized funding for the potential design of a performing arts venue. I need to find out whether there have been any pressure to ask us to join in that, because before we would involve ourselves, I think the board needs to be thoroughly up to speed on all of that before we make any kind of commitment.
Sure.
A lot. Everybody else, a lot. Did pretty much the same thing you all did. I saw you all over the place. The only other thing that I did was I went to Prince William last week for the VACO spring meeting, and spent the morning on my VACO meeting and the afternoon touring Prince William. And we went to a company that stores and studies and maybe microorganisms and all kinds of diseases, and they study them for research, but they also ship them out, the cells, for research other places. And it was quite something. It was quite an interesting tour. And but the other thing we toured was about driving around 56 data centers. There are data centers all over the place up there. Better looking as they went along. They actually got their first one in the 90s. So that was interesting. And then tomorrow, I don't know if any of you all are going to our Region 2 meeting at the Freight Shed in York County, VACO.
It all depends
Oh,
on,
you'll be gone.
it all depends on what happens between now and then.
Okay, all right. So we do have our
I do have,
region meeting tomorrow. And, pardon?
Yeah.
Business awards is
Yeah,
tomorrow.
business awards is
4 o'clock.
tomorrow afternoon as well.
Oh, yes, yes, that's right. The business awards is tomorrow as well. So right after
things tomorrow.
our meeting. And
I
that's
think
at,
I have 5 or 6.
Muscarell, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what's going on.
Popular day.
This is, just to be sure, this is not where we give the business awards to our own. This is a joint effort by the York, Williamsburg, and James City Economic Development.
Business
offices.
appreciation event, yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah.
Business appreciation.
Right. Okay. Yes, yes.
I think the events that I attended, Kongsberg Police Service Awards Dinner, which I agree with Ms. Null, that it was a really wonderful event. It was the very first time they've done a dinner, and it was
Yeah, and
very
they're gonna do
successful.
it next year.
Yeah.
Chief Jameson said it's already being set up.
Yes. And then one event that I was not able to attend, I really missed that, was the County Service Awards. It's always a highlight of the year when we get an opportunity to celebrate people on the anniversary, the 5-year anniversary of their work, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, so forth and so on. So I appreciate the fact that we were recognizing folks, but unfortunately couldn't be there at that time. I also did want to make mention of the passing of Wilfred Kale. Wilfred served for a brief period of time as an appointed member of this body as part of a very diverse career that included his service as a bureau chief for the Richmond Times-Dispatch for a number of years, working for the Virginia Marine Resources Commission for a period of time, working then for the Virginia Gazette as a freelancer and commentator on books and other cultural items, as well as a reporter on openings and closings of businesses in the Hampton Roads area. He was Santa Claus at Busch Gardens. He was always willing to share his opinions, sometimes in rather heated language, but Wilfred knew more about the Williamsburg area than anybody else around, and would be happy to correct any misinformation you might provide, and was also very generous in offering his help, support, and opinion. Wrote a couple of different books, and he was an original. We will not have another Wilfred Kale for a long, long time, I think, in this.
I would like to add that he was a Vietnam veteran and was a very, very strong supporter of our Home for the Holidays program for the veterans, for the young folks in the military in our area. So personal friend, very, very much will be missed.
That's it, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. 2 items. One, follow up on the live performance venue, Mr. Eisenhower. James City and York County don't have any money into any design at this point. We do have a 35% design. I think you'll hear more about that. And there is not a decision being pushed in the next month or 3. I think there would be some discussion in the coming 6 to 9 months. So I think you'll hear more about it, but we have not committed any funding to that project, nor has York County. And so you would have the ability to make that decision at a later date after, I think, significant conversation. So more to come on that. The other side is hurricane season. Just a reminder, it begins in June. It's hard to believe we're back around again, and we will put out more notices as we get into June, but with that a week away, I just thought I'd mention it. We've asked our residents in past years to be able to look after their family, including pets, with food, water, medicines for a period of 3 days. If we were to have a significant event, it may be 3 days before we could get to them and help a family. So just trying to get people in that mindset before we get into the June timeframe. That's all I have.
Chair?
Yes.
I will be making a request at the June meeting to come in virtually. I will be out of town.
That advance notice. And so we have a closed session coming up, so I'd ask for consideration for a motion to go into closed session for consideration of a personnel matter, the appointment of individuals to county boards and/or commissions pursuant to section 2.23711, A1 of the Code of Virginia, specifically appointments to the Stormwater Program Advisory Committee and appointments to the inaugural Board of Directors of the James City County Community Land Trust. So do I have a motion to?
Motion.
We have the motion to go into closed session. Mrs. Stevens, call the roll, please.
Ms. Wainwright?
Aye.
Ms. Knoll?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan? Motion carries.
Call this meeting back to order, and I will look for a motion to certify.
I'll move we certify.
I'll move we certify, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Certify the closed session. Mr. Stevens, would you call the roll, please?
Wainwright.
Aye.
Ms. Knoll.
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Ms. Larson.
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Okay, ready? I'll make a motion to reappoint Matthew Woolsey and Ms. Alexandra Yonica for an additional 4-year term on the Stormwater Program Advisory Committee. For these terms will expire on June 30th, 2030.
Stevens, call the roll, please.
Ms. Wainwright.
Aye.
Ms. Knoll.
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Ms. Larson.
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now look for a motion to adjourn till 5 p.m. on June 9th at 5 p.m. for our regular meeting.
So moved.
So a motion. Mr. Stevens, call the roll, please.
Ms. Wainwright.
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Knoll. Mr. Eisenhower.
Aye.
Mr. Larson.
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan.
Aye.
Motion carries.